The Chronicles of The Plus One Infection, a podcast and novel by Kevin C. Norris. Chapter 1, Just Another Regular Job, in which our main character accepts a new mission and discovers that things may not be as they seem.
Everything is memory. Memory is everything. Except for this one continuous spark along the timeline that is your consciousness experiencing the quote-unquote present at a non-existent point in space. Memory and history is all we have. We only ever congratulate ourselves about things that are gone. Dr. Pansuuk Soulgrave. From his website, The Real Deal on Real Estate.
I get the call early in the evening. This is good, because I'm not so drunk as to lose my reflexes, and the meth has hit that deep, sweet spot where the vibrations in my spine are telling me I'm about ready to kick a little ass. It's a new lady's voice on the phone this time. A business-like voice, no apologies, kind of deep and present and authoritative. I feel a little twitch down below and think that maybe I'm going to like this job. Maybe that voice is going to tell me about things I can let loose and wrap my fists around. I hear the words, but I'm not really paying attention to their meaning, because I know the drill. It's not like it's a new thing. There's monsters, at least 4, and you have the authority to use lethal force, blah, blah, blah. Hey, babe, I cut her off. Is this all you got for me? Because I can already tell you how this whole thing is going to go down. Silence on the other end. I can hear the open air ballooning between us. Are we going to have a problem? She finally says. No problem. I sit up, hunch over my knees. How's the last lady doing? Gloria? Her kids enjoying their new school? More silence, but I can feel the waves of hatred pushing against that silence like oiled eels shoved into a nylon stocking. But then she continues on in that same straight-to-business jive, and I lose interest again, only plucking details I need from her words as I need them. Her voice is quavering just a little bit now. See, it's the personal stuff they don't like me knowing about. Makes them nervous. I start to drop little tidbits into the conversation as I get bored, and usually when I mention their kids, that's when they start filling out forms for a new assignment. And bingo, it's another voice on the end of the line. It's all just a game, but it keeps everybody on their toes, so to speak, and I get a little variety in my life. All of a sudden, in the middle of all this pontification, I hear her say the word snakes, so I perk up a little. These cold-blooded types, they can be trouble. They don't have what we call, what the fuck is the word? Empathy. Yeah, snakes don't have empathy. So now I'm actually listening and taking in as many details as I can and putting them back into the processor to sort themselves out. Scared little girl, yada yada yada, monsters, torture, sexual and otherwise, mutilation, and etc. Sounds like fun. Sounds like fun, I say. I can feel the meth and bourbon in my system fighting for control, but it's not too bad yet. I keep juggling the phone from ear to ear, and my burps smell like turpentine. Tomorrow I'll regret all this junk in my system for the couple of hours I'll suffer sober before I start it all over again. Since she's new, I don't know a lot about her, but I can tell by the measured tone of her voice that she doesn't believe half of it. Which is fine by me. She'll figure it out eventually, and it's better if my information comes from someone who can say all this stuff without losing it. I'll do what I got to do regardless, and she can go to sleep at night thinking this whole mess is just junkies or super frustrated pedos and not really what it is. And then she's finished, tells me there's a driver coming to pick me up and I better get a move on. I say, politely but firmly, that she should not tell me how to do my fucking job. Silence on her end. This time the eels seem a bit affronted by my tone. "Aw, is that all it takes, honey?" I say, smiling big. I can feel the recycled air of the room chill on my gums. Just a little smack and you're done? Maybe we're not going to have that much fun after all. There's an electronic half-click as the connection terminates and I'm on my own again. Good. This is good. I've been itching for something to do. I toss the phone behind me onto the mattress and rub my hands and fingers over my face, dry skin scratching dust and follicles to fly off and sparkle in the green-yellow slash of sunlight up the wall of my hotel room. If they'd kept me sitting here too much longer, I think I would have used up the last of my patience and been forced to hit the streets again on a pro bono rampage, and that can be trouble. Not for me, mind. I could give a fuck about the reasons for doing the things I do. They keep me happy because they think they can direct me by the threat of force. If that makes them feel better, then great, but it really just boils down to me not wanting to mess with a good thing. I do a last heavy draw on the one-hitter for luck and ashes, then I stand up. I'm naked, not for any other reason than I just don't feel like wearing clothes if I don't have to, and I glance in the mirror. I watch myself as I breathe out the blue smoke, feeling for a moment in the haze of smoke and dying sunlight like a coiled snake or a Chinese dragon, and I extend my arms in front of me to once again admire my ink and the imperfect reflection of the mirror. Wrist to shoulder on my right side and extending all the way to the fingertips of my left, the intricate squiggles of sense and nonsense, of the sacred, arcane, and blasphemous intermingled with my own personal fuck-it-all style. It extends across my chest as well, but there it's more utilitarian than anything else, and it lacks the artistry. Can't get all flowery when it's nothing but a rune symbol between your heart and some prick from the ninth gate with a soul shank. After I stare for a few seconds, I realize I'm drifting and I pull myself back. I smack myself in the head and see a brief bright spark behind my eyes that's like my brain getting rebooted. Good enough. I sit back on the mattress and start getting my shit together for what's coming. I pull on stale boxer briefs, cargo pants, thick black socks, and army boots that I got from your mom. And I collect the gear I think I might need for this particular outing. The usual, of course, knives of several types and lengths, a pretty serious hatchet I've kept around for a while, piano wire, spiked knuckles, a leather pouch full of birdshot in case I choose to go non-lethal. Not often, but it sometimes pays to keep a jerk alive long enough to use him for some purpose. I've got a concealed carry backpack that I shove most of this stuff into, along with any of the dozens of magical baubles and trinkets that could mean the difference between life and death in a tight spot. I used to carry bigger hitters, crossbows, and shit like that, but as I've gotten experience with what's out there, I've come to the conclusion that in close is the way to go. Make sure you hear the snap of a fiend's neck, or the fart of a collapsed lung before moving on. Crossbows and hiding in shadows and that kind of shit is for those like effete types who don't want to get their hands dirty. Me, I like dirty hands. I reach under the bed and pull out the main event. 13 inches of black iron, curved and hooked, sharper than a serpent's tooth, to quote the bard. That's Shakespeare if you don't know what I'm talking about. There are sigils etched into the handle and blade that make it just as poisonous as a snake's tooth to the quarry I'm hunting. I give her a little kiss and she goes into the equally ornate scabbard that I strap under the backpack. I pull on one of those Under Armour shirts, stretchy and kind of waterproof. Usually I don't mind if my pants get mucked up when the blood starts flying. I kind of like it, really. Triggers a kind of adrenaline thing in my brain when my legs get heavy and I get more focused. But up top I need to keep clean. Or if not clean, at least not some cotton fucking t-shirt soaking up blood and catching on some asshole's horns or whatever. I pull on the scabbard, pull on the pack and cinch it around my waist. Double check the knives and hatchet, run my thumb across the blade, sharp and clean, but not for long, I hope. Finally, I pull on a medium-length dark brown leather coat, the lining stitched with more symbols, and a symbol of chaos embossed into the back. The symbol on the back of the jacket looks like this: a series of 6 slashes creating an asterisk or a starburst pattern. I check myself in the mirror again. If I'm gonna be honest, I have to say that I am one swinging dick, tough-looking motherfucker. Not the prettiest guy, but I even got a glam for that on a medallion. Makes me appear to anybody I want to, like a cross between Brad Pitt and Ward Cleaver. Ah, that reminds me. I go over to the motionless figure tied to a chair in the corner of the hotel room. I can hear the whistling of breath through a broken nose. This annoys me, and I give the jerk a crack across the face, if you can call it that anymore. A face, I mean. It screams, and red eyes flash open. There's rage in them, but also fear, and I like that. I pick up the meat cleaver. See? Like Ward Cleaver, that's what reminded me. I've been using on him for the past few days and press it against his forehead. The iron in the blade makes his alien skin sizzle, and it screams again. I could never understand why these fuckers even want to mess around in a world that's so toxic to them. Why do you fuckers mess around in a world that's so toxic to you, I ask, yanking its head up and looking into those dying coal ember eyes. It spits out something in its garbage language. I won't bother to translate it because it's just the same old shit. It's bathed in my blood and there will be others and whatever, I'm bored now. Even though I know I probably shouldn't, I take a couple of minutes to carve a few more smoking furrows into it while it slavers and screams and gurgles. When I feel it start to convulse, I toss its cleaver away, cup its blood and drool-flecked chin in my hand and say, "We'll talk more later, beautiful." It doesn't respond, so I leave it to sit with its black thoughts. Okay, now, where was I? Everything feels pretty good. I check all my gear one more time, then give myself a look over in the mirror, muttering a few incantations to push it all just a touch more to the up and up. Oh yeah, I'm good. I'm ready. Oh, and in case you were wondering, I'm the nightmare you're scared of. Wait, no. I'm what your nightmares have... Nightmares of... Wait a minute. Alright, someday I'll get that line right. Subchapter 2. I step into the hallway, closing the door behind me, walk down a few steps, turn into the elevator vestibule and press the button. I tap the medallion on my chest and smile at an old lady who gets off when the doors open. She smiles back as the handsome and paternal man gives her a little wink, flattered and comforted by at least one good soul in this ever-sickening world. In my mind, I'm pulling her head back in a vicious snap so I can slit her throat so vulnerable beneath the loose and lacy old woman layers of skin. I make a note of the left she takes down the hallway towards her room, just as the elevator doors start to close. I walk past the blackout glass of the check-in window. What kind of hotel has a check-in window that's blacked out? This kind of hotel, in this part of town. And because fuck you, that's why. I know there's a camera looking at me, and I salute it with a grin. If somebody's paying attention, they'll basically see an unexplainable image glitch in the footage. Oh well, when you rent your rooms by the hour, you don't ask questions about the creepy guy who pays for a month in advance in cash. There's a car waiting for me just outside the glass doors of the lobby, sitting in a slanting ray of gooey LA 6 o'clock sunlight. I can tell it's there for me because the car is a piece of crap sedan that the organization likes to use, and the guy behind the wheel is wearing a cheap suit and tie that just about screams, "I don't belong here." He's also eating what looks like a Philly cheesesteak with all the fixins. As I approach the car, he takes a big greasy bite before looking over at me. "Hop in," he says through the meat. I open the door and cram myself in the back. It's kind of tight, what with all my equipment and everything, but I manage. The sandwich stinks like onion and spoiled vegetable oil. It's actually making me a little queasy, which pisses me off. I don't like losing my edge over some chump's afternoon snack. It may surprise you to know that I'm generally a vegetarian, or maybe it doesn't. Somebody once told me that Hitler was a vegetarian, although I don't think that means much. He certainly did set up enough slaughterhouses, didn't he? They say he walked his dog outside the bunker during the last days of the war. Maybe he was an animal lover under all that genocidal fury. As for me, I'm a vegetarian because it keeps me lean and I don't shit so much. Actually, I don't really like dogs either, I say, to nobody in particular. The guy looks over his shoulder at me. He's older, bald, kind of fat, has a mustache. He looks exactly like he's supposed to look. A greasy, bald goomba to drive me to the job. This annoys me too for some reason. "What am I, your chauffeur?" he asks. "You're new," I say, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. "Everybody's new on this job." I sit in the back. "But I got stuff I'm supposed to tell." "Tell it to me like this." I sit in the back. I'm starting to get a little too amped up. I can feel the meth shifting directions on me, so I try to make myself comfortable and stop my knee from bopping up and down. "Whatever, man." He pulls out, starts driving. I settle in and count turns and stoplights. By the time both counts head into the double digits, I know where we're headed. Old Town. The thing about Old Town is that it's old. Like, really, really old. Like, older than any place has a right to be. Up until a few years ago, it was just another section of downtown LA that was full of lowlives and warehouses and the odd tent city. But then it found itself caught up in one of those time, space, physics yo-yo tricks reality's been playing for the last half-century or so. See, back in the early 2000s, there had been an increasing number of reports in this specific area of these random localized microcosms of previously unknown physics kind of popping into existence. So like Dad would be taking a shortcut to avoid the freeways driving the kids to soccer practice, and all of a sudden his feet would flip up inside his torso and combust into water vapor. And then nobody gets to soccer practice. But it was pretty random and infrequent. Until it wasn't. After a while, things started getting more and more intense. Like there was this one lady who was walking with her baby in a stroller down Flower Street on a spring day when things were getting more and more hectic, but nothing had really been suggested yet as to how to stop it. Ruth something was her name. They ended up calling her Patient Zero because she was the first person who they had on record this stuff happening to. I don't know the baby's name, but her name was Ruth. So Ruth is pushing her kid along and she hits one of these pockets of weird physics. All of a sudden, the stroller starts shaking like crazy. The baby pops out and floats in the air, giving off this bright light and high-pitched whine, and Ruth just stands there watching until her head squashes inwards and diamonds come squirting out of her ears. Then the whole thing, Ruth, baby, and stroller, starts spinning and coalescing into a smaller and brighter note of light and sound. I mean, the buildings were shaking until it all just puffs into this burst of hydrogen sulfide gas. Talk about surreal. A kid had his phone out taking pictures of his skateboarding buddies and managed to catch most of poor Ruth's transformation. You get the idea. After this happened a few more times, this part of downtown was evacuated and everybody left it alone until the contortions reached like a super saturation point, kinda, and it all just sort of snapped and normalized itself and people started going back in, big old danger signs or not. But you can still sense the history there, the feeling that every molecule of the place has been through the time-space ringer more than once. After a few years, the edges were staked off and the area was renamed Old Town. It's just another part of downtown, really. You get the willies there every once in a while, but that's about it. The tent cities are back, and most of the buildings are either fought over by territorial squatters or empty. If I recall, there used to be a pretty good pizza joint down the west side called Monster Pies or something. Now, though, since the budget cuts, the police stopped patrolling, and it's just another series of rat holes where the ne'er-do-wells hang out and make trouble. Anyway, all right, fine. You want to be like that? Here's the scoop, Ace, the driver says. He's had the radio on some oldie station, but turns it down now. Bye-bye, love. He passes back a photograph. This is the objective. They tell me you get funny ideas, and I'm not supposed to tell you anything about her, so I'm not going to. I look at the photo. Diana Patel, 20, daughter of Senator Nareeb Patel of Nebraska, I say. She has a Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram account. Want to know what kind of ice cream she likes? The guy goes quiet for a minute then. Okay, smart guy, but just so you know, we need her alive and with everything still connected to every other thing. I know what to do. Don't tell me what to do. Do I tell you how to shove fried food in your face and stink? There's a little pause, like maybe he wants to say something, but then, she's being held in a 5-story apartment building on one of the top 2 floors on the north side. Near as we can figure it, the whole house is swarming with spooks, so you're going to have to scope out your best entry. Our inside guy says they have guards right on her, and that they're itchy on the trigger, so you might want to... I know your inside guy, I say. He's about as full of shit as it's possible for one of his type to be. I actually don't know exactly for sure, but my guess is they're using this kid named Tommy Schreffler, a 2-time loser who got lucky one night at the tables and ended up making nice with a middling powerful downtown magic user and club owner. Lavrise, I think he's called. Anyway, a few months later, Tommy got caught dealing ether caps on his third and final strike and decided to turn over for our side. He's not worth much, usually doesn't know anything I don't already. I look at the photo again. She's pretty, looks happy. I think about how she must be feeling right now, tied to a better chair, surrounded by nightmares. The thought sends a little thrill up my spine, and I feel blood start moving to my extremities. All right, slow down, cowboy. Remember the job. I look up and see the driver eyeballing me in the rear view. He seems amused. She's cute, right? He says. You like that, right? I look out the window now, removing myself from the conversation. The slanting sun stabbing through the passing trees flicks ever-changing shadows and lights and darks. I can feel the same old black thing bubbling up in my chest, ready to come out, but I hold it back. It's not quite time. A dozen or so years ago, I was in Texas and I was hitchhiking from one shitty town to another. No idea where I was going or why, just kind of overwhelmed with the need to be moving. I'd been in a car wreck hours earlier and was walking, technically breaking the law, leaving the scene of an accident. I hadn't seen anybody or anything for hours, but I was pretty sure I was going to die on that road from heat exhaustion anyway. Oh, but then the sun went down and I was pretty sure I was going to freeze to death. Fucking Texas. But luck was on my side that night. I kept dragging my sorry ass down the highway until I came to a little red nest of lights and the smell of fuel oil. It was a stop for somebody's route, probably, kept alive by a trio of skinny women at a booth and one older man who rung the register and ran the place. I didn't care who they were, I just needed what was in the barrel set up by the bar, icy and slimed with green and gold light from the neon signs. You all right? The man said to me, but it came out like, you're right. And I looked at him and at the rest of the stragglers in this bar, and I thought, do I look okay, buddy? Do the heat blisters on my forehead and my bleeding lips not paint a picture for you? But I said, sure, give me a drink. What do you want? I don't know, whatever you got. Just make sure it has bubbles. I'm sitting at the bar now. No, I'm not. I'm looking out the window of the car now on the way to the job. Things are starting to run together. I don't need to be going back into bad memories. The driver shouts back at me, You want the rest of this sandwich, man? I'm not going to eat it. No, throw it out the window. I don't want to smell it anymore. He breathes out like he's made a big decision about buying a flat-screen TV or something. You know, You're a lot smaller than I thought you'd be, and you're a hell of a lot smaller than somebody who should be talking to people the way you're doing now. How far are we? I ask. What? How far are we from the job? Oh, just like a block over. You can see the lights now. I pull something out of my bag. You got a wife? Any children? What? No, I don't. I put the hunting knife into his spine at the neck from behind his seat, and as he gurgles once in what I can only assume is protest, I lean forward, grab the wheel, and try to ease the car into some garbage cans on the side of the street. When we come to a slightly jarring halt, I yank out the knife, and there's about as much blood as you'd expect. He's jerking around in the seat and not enjoying himself. If it's any consolation, pal, I didn't really enjoy it much either. I just didn't really see any other option. You served your purpose. You drove me. I'm here. I reach forward, switch off the ignition, then I lean him back in the car seat and sprinkle some salt on his face, muttering a few minor incantations just to make sure he doesn't try to show up and haunt my ass at an inopportune moment. Stepping out of the car onto a beer can on the street, it wraps itself up around my boot and I have to kick it off at the curb. It takes like 3 tries. Oh, God, that's so irritating. Subchapter 3. Hey, I bet you're asking yourself, what if he had said that he did have a wife and kids? I don't know, honestly. I might have taken it into consideration, but really, with this chump's habits, I'd probably be doing that family a favor. As it is, I can at least console myself with the fact that he's out of the reproduction game. His swimmers ain't swimming in the collective gene pool anymore. I don't know, he doesn't seem like a loss. I mean, what do you want from me? I do this shit, alright? I'm not hiding it from you. Let's not get off on the wrong foot here. There's a few things I think you might need to know about me if this whole back and forth is going to continue. I kill things that are bad. I've saved a lot of lives, more than you guys with your clipboards and your styrofoam coffee cups will ever be able to comfortably acknowledge. There are important men and women who are right now doing hugely important things only because I was there at the right moment and I chopped some bad guy's head off before he could do it to the good guy. You don't know how close you've come to cataclysm because of the shit I know about, and believe me, you don't want to know. But don't for a second think that I do it because I feel some sense of moral obligation. I didn't think I was going to have to spell all this out for you, but no. There is no difference in the joy I get from separating some goon from the dungeon dimension on the 8th Circuit from his despicable existence and the joy I would get from separating you from yours. There are no good guys in this. I kill what I kill because it's more convenient for me to go along with your idea of morality than it is to go against it. For now. I hope it never comes to it, but if it does, I will pulverize the so-called good guys in a New York minute. And I will feel the same amount of satisfaction licking the blood off my fingers. Hey, you got any more of them donuts? You know, the ones with the powdered sugar? Subchapter 4. Once that goddamn can is dislodged, I look around and I can see what he was talking about. It looks like the local guys have taken this one under their jurisdiction, or at least up until this point. Since I got called in, it means somebody much further up the chain is making the decisions now, and really these guys are not equipped to deal with this kind of bad. I mean, it's seriously above their pay scale, if you know what I mean. Coming around the corner, I immediately see my destination. It's a big square apartment building with 6 floors and identical gutted-out shitboxes on either side, probably a remnant of one of the nastier gang wars that have been going on lately. Why this building was spared is anyone's guess, and it looks pretty empty, so I guess that means there'll be hallways and stairwells and all sorts of places for things to jump out of the shadows at me. Can't wait. As I approach the ring of police cars surrounding the building, I see a familiar face, or rather the back of a familiar head. Sergeant Bulstrode of the Central District is standing around with a bullhorn in his hand, looking like a guy who knows he should look like he's in charge of things, but has no way of making that a reality. Bulstrode is a sad case. He's one of those guys who never quite came to grips with things once the dimensions started getting screwy and weird shit started happening. It was like, once the can of worms was open and illogical, terrifying stuff started happening, a lot of people in sort of middle management positions couldn't deal and either just put on the blinders or off themselves. I mean, it's understandable. You gotta do what you gotta do, and I do give Bulstrode credit for not completely giving up, even if he does walk around looking like he just accidentally swallowed a baby thermometer. He's waiting for his insides to start acting up. I come up behind him and start to say something, but he's in there first.
You, I don't need tonight,
he says, whirling around and brandishing the blue and white bullhorn in my face. He screws up his cop mustache. Classic Bulstrode. Nobody told me this was going to be a you thing. Not tonight. I have dinner waiting for me at home, and I don't need this to be a you thing that ends up all cataclysmic and shit. You understand me? So go home and eat, I say casually. I've got this. Tell Maria I said hi. He puts the bullhorn to his mouth and shouts in electronically amplified rage at a couple of beat cops to get the fuck behind the yellow tape. You seem tense.
I seem tense? I seem tense? Do I? To you, I seem tense?
I kind of regret saying it, but he continues, getting shriller with each word.
I've got a fucking senator's daughter in there. A fucking important senator who could make a lot of trouble for me if it turns out one of those things, those whatever you call them, has eaten her, or set her on fire, or tattooed her in that way that explodes.
I don't think they would have had time to do that.
Or whatever. I also have an ulcer that is currently bleeding into my stomach, so my shit is a black nightmare, and for some reason, my penis is inverted. So yes, I'm tense.
He stops, realizing that he's been saying all that through the bullhorn to my face. After a second, he seems almost like he feels better for getting it all out. I should really just kill him to put him out of his misery, though. Don't worry about anything, I say. I got this. Yeah, and leave you here to tear up half the city like last time with the witches. That wasn't my fault. Yeah, right, he scratches his head gloomily with the bullhorn. It's nobody's fault. Hitler's fault, maybe, but he ain't around to bitch to. Fuck this. I don't need a history lesson. I take the bullhorn from Bulstrode's astonished fingers and throw it across the street. It lands neatly in a dumpster with a clang, and the precariously balanced lid quivers and clangs shut. Ha! Couldn't do that again if I tried. The place evacuated? He stares after the bullhorn for a second. The little blue light at the top flashes out of the seams of the top of the dumpster, like there's a party going on in there. Yeah, everybody's out but the victim as far as we know. I'm going in. I'll come out with the girl if there's anything to come out with. I'm not that into it tonight, don't worry. The skags will be enough. Bulstrode shakes his head. Whatever, just do what you do. Fuck you, I say jauntily, and I'm off. I wend my way through the other police officers who look alternately bored and terrified by what's happening. The bored ones are usually younger, waiting to see their first big show. The scared ones have seen it and hope to never see it again. No amount of explaining can do justice to the full-on mindfuck one of these trans-dimensional brain scions can put on and just to cause a distraction. It's something you don't ever want to experience, and if you do, you won't ever forget it. Doesn't look like this is the case for tonight, however. Tonight seems like it's going to be a bunch of punks from the wrong side of the dimensional tracks who just decided to make some trouble and are now in over their heads. I doubt there'll be any pulsating nebula fetuses that make your brains dribble out through your nose. And yeah, that does happen. My cell phone rings. I squint at the numbers. Oh, it's the boss lady. What? I say. Why did you kill Tony? Her voice is commanding as before. And let me tell you, I have little Hermann Goering's goose-stepping up and down my spine when I hear it. Tony? That's not a very original name. I look up at the house. I'm a little busy here. We're taking it out of your good time. He was an important part of our organization. He stunk, and he couldn't drive. I think for a moment. Also, he was slow. I telegraphed that whole knife thing by about a mile. Nevertheless, I understand you've been warned about this before. You are to fulfill your mission parameters at your discretion, but with absolute minimal loss of human life. Is that too difficult for you? No. Hey, what do you mean by good time? If you allow the girl to die or cause any other loss of human life, you'll lose it. That's all you have to know. Do I have your word? My word, huh? This is how they get me. They know I won't go against my word. Call it pride, call it stupidity, but it's me, and that's what I do. Or don't do in this instance. Yeah, you have my word. She hangs up. Oh yeah, I'm gonna want to have a talk face to face with this babe, and soon. She's got something going on. From somewhere in the building there is a crash and a scream. Alright then, that's it. I hunker down and make my way to the front door to the lobby. I don't see anybody around, but that makes sense at this point. They'll be lying in wait for me to show up. Well, no reason to keep them waiting. I stumble onto a piece of broken pavement. Suddenly, I'm back at this bar all those years ago, sipping a flavorless beer and a whiskey chaser, hunched over the splintery bar, deciding then and there whether I'm going to give it all up and die. After my second whiskey, I decided it might be worth keeping things going for at least one more night. The bartender, obviously interested in any change to his usual clientele, decides to make conversation. "You look done in, mister. Where you coming from?" I look up from my drink, noticing the pinched face and patchy beard, the product of several generations of inbreeding. I don't hold that against anybody. You can't control where your dad threw his spunk, even if it was into his sister. This makes me think for a passing moment about my own genealogy, and I take another sip of my beer before answering. I tell him about leaving the last town earlier in the day, about looking for a ride and almost turning back when I got picked up by a guy who called himself Shelley and smelled like his insides was decaying. I tell him about declining to partake in the meth he was smoking, trying to get him to slow down and let me out, struggling with the knife he pulled, and never being so glad I was wearing a seatbelt as when he hit the shoulder, dug in, and flipped his piece of shit Toyota and injected himself into a gully where I found him with the knife shoved through one cheek into his brain. "Jesus," the guy behind the bar says, and I nod. It was kind of true, except that I don't tell him that the guy started to, well, change as we were driving, like his skin was just a Halloween costume and he was itching to get out of it. I kept seeing things like hair and teeth coming out in odd places. So after I had had just about enough of that horse shit, I put the knife into him and then I grabbed the wheel and flipped the car. And he wasn't smoking meth, I was. But it was mostly true. I sipped my whiskey. "What did the cops say?" he asked, and I see his lower lip trembling a bit. "There weren't any cops. On that stretch of road, we hadn't even seen another car in over 20 minutes or so." I roll the shot glass between my fingers, watching as the amber liquid trembles and glints in the uneven lighting of the bar room. "Do you," the bartender starts, seeming to think better for a second, but then he soldiers forth. "Do you think somebody should go out there and look for him? Maybe bury him or something?" I shrugged. Truth was, I already took care of that, burned him to ashes so he couldn't do anybody any more harm. But I said, "I'm sure some animal's gotten to him by now. Probably nothing but vulture crap." He crosses himself, a solemn look on his face, and says, Subchapter 5. It doesn't matter. I'm not there anymore. I'm going up the front stairs to the double glass doors of the base of the building. I can't see any movement on the inside, but the doors are so filmy with grime that there could be a disco dance party going on in there for all I know. I press on the buzzer just for the hell of it. Maybe they'll just answer and we can negotiate. Ha ha! That's a laugh. But, as I guessed, there's no power and no buzz. I push on the door. It gives a little but doesn't open. Seems like there's something blocking it. I put a shoulder against it and heave. With a groan, several pieces of furniture scrape across the floor. I make enough space to force my way through and climb onto one of the big couches. I jump off, and as my foot lands on the floor, one of those aforementioned big psychic waves hits me, and I'm almost not ready for it. Turns out there might be a big space baby involved after all, and that means these guys are a little more involved than I thought. My eyes are suddenly looking inward at my brain, searing, twitching in my skull, as clawed nightmare cherubs with black empty eyes and lizard tongues slash and contort in the green glow of another elsewhere world dimension. Pins and needles lightly touch every inch of my body, but it's not my body, it's my incorporeal self. I feel like I'm vomiting and drowning and falling and being punched all at once. I smell buniper cherries, astringent, reading, non-ocular. I see my hands, the skin peeling away, revealing red streaked bone, and there is a pier with a slick coat of pale slime, and the water is inerrant, lost attenuation, pulsing up and down and up and down, and I can distantly feel my mouth start to buckle as my knees twist into a grin, everything in my head pulled up to the breaking point, but just not quite making it. Then audibly, at least to myself, there is a slight tick in reality, and the crazy show flips off, and I'm standing in the lobby again. A few deep breaths and a check to make sure my balls are still attached, and I'm back to reality, such as it is. Sorry, buds, I've seen this party trick once too often. I concentrate for a few moments, putting up a few more mental blocks, and feel back my usual mean as cat shit self. It was a pretty strong blast, though. I imagine a few of the cops outside are currently puking their guts out and wishing they'd called in sick. The thought of that makes me feel even better. I cut across the lobby of the elevator, which has a sign over the floor call button reading, "Out of order." Ah well, I kind of figured. Don't make it too easy on me. As I turn to find the stairwell, a clawed fist crunches into the side of my face, making me see stars for half a second. Well, that can't be good. How did I let this mook get the drop on me so easy? I blink a couple of times and see the thing in front of me, a man-sized reptilian creature with slick-back greasy hair and a humanoid face that's pulled in a sneer, showing long, pointed fangs. I recognize it from some fucking nightmare book my father made me read when I was a kid. They're mean as hell and come from one of those water dimensions out on the 4th Circuit. Or 5th, maybe. Shit, I was never much for learning out of books, even when I was a kid. Naga, I think they're called. Worshipped in some South Asian backwater villages as messengers of the gods. I've dealt with them before. Tough, but nothing I can't handle. This sneaky motherfucker, though, caught me unawares, which is disconcerting. Good thing these guys usually go unarmed, I guess, or it could have gotten complicated. I'm tough, but even I don't enjoy a blade through my face if I can help it. I don't know. I want to chalk it up to the mental blast, or maybe a touch of overconfidence, but any way you slice it.
So, this is what they send,
the creature says in its low hissing voice.
A single human?
I shake the last of the punch out of my head and crouch low, pulling out my hunting knife, not wanting to bring out the main event just yet. Maybe that's just more cockiness, but now that this guy's wasted his momentum posturing, I'm not really all that worried. I shrug. Yeah, just me. I guess this'll be over quick, huh? Ooh, help, Mr. Snake Man is gonna get me. The Naga giggles, a weirdly childlike sound.
Oh, don't sell yourself short, human. Maybe you get lucky.
It giggles again. Okay, that's just creepy. Without losing a flicker of its toothy smile, the thing lunges at me with its claws out in front of it like a 50s movie monster. Clumsy as hell, but I guess it's meant to look intimidating. I step around it as it passes, give the thing a sharp rap on the top of its head with the butt of my knife. Could have done it with a sharp end, but I have a few questions I need answering. The Naga lets out a howl and slaps its hand to its greasy head. I jump back and forth a little, prodding him playfully in his scaly back. Sorry, pal, too slow. Now I've got him mad. With an angry hiss, the creature lashes out with one of its claws. I duck under pretty easily. That thing I said about the cold-blooded fuckers, they're mean, and they can surprise you with their behavior because they have no loyalty to anything, but in the end, they've usually only got one or two good real attacks in them before they're used up.
Stay still! Stop sidestepping!
Ooh boy. In fact, this charmer is so big on sibilance and short on speed that my mind starts wandering as he tries to take me out. So what that bartender actually said that night as he crossed himself was, "Our hearts were made for you, O Lord, and they are restless until they rest in you." Sorry, that's me changing the subject for a second. We'll get back to Jake the Snake, but yeah, that's what the bartender said. Our hearts were made for you, O Lord. This didn't sit well with me, so I finished my drink and went into the bathroom. I took a painful, runny shit, and when I came out, I shot the 3 people in the bar with a little Saturday night special I took from the accident site and Shelley's still mutating dead body. After that, I smashed in the bartender's very surprised face with a pint glass. Once he was out of it, I took my time taking him apart piece by piece on that barroom floor, the blood soaking into the shitty unfinished floor and gleaming weirdly in the neon light. I remember thinking, my heart wasn't made for nobody, motherfucker. Anyway, back in the building. Thinking about it, maybe it wasn't so bad that I let it get that one in on me earlier. Even though it stung like a bastard and stung my pride even more, it certainly seems to have lulled this jerk into thinking that I couldn't rip his fucking head off if I wanted to. I realize that I want to. I throw my knife and it goes end over end, chunking into a wall, and the next time the thing lunges at me, I grab his noggin. I lean forward into where I guess his ear is, nothing more than a flapped hole in the side of its neck, and whisper in what I think is a friendly, conspiratorial manner, "So, how was she?" It struggles, slapping at my forearms.
What? How was who?
I'm not surprised to see that the over-the-top hissing is gone. A lot of these legendary types are a lot more style than substance when it comes down to it. The girl, I soothed. I could hear her screaming up on the 6th floor from a block away. How did she taste? The thing struggles for a bit more, but realizing I'm not letting it go anywhere, he calms down.
What's you talking about, Flesher?
It spits. Flesher is one of the nicer derogatory names that normally immortal beings have for us regular folk. I kind of like it myself.
We haven't touched the girl, and besides, we're on the 5th.
Good, I say, and with a grunt I twist as hard as I can. The body flaps around spastically as I turn the head, the snapped bone, more like cartilage really, grinding beneath the neck like badly seated ball bearings. Then, pop! I yank it off. Not so much blood as you'd think. And what there is kind of lukewarm, thin and clear, like the stuff that leaks out of your nose when you got a sniffle. I take the head, look into the creature's eyes. I don't see any recognition in there, and I wonder briefly if I put my finger in its mouth, if those teeth would clamp down on my finger as well as its own lolling tongue. I put my mouth to the ear flap again. It was very helpful that you are as dumb as you look. Thanks. And then I toss it into the corner, where it sits and behaves itself. The body is another story. It continues to twitch as the neck oozes out with this snotty fluid. I grab my knife out of the wall and put a foot on one arm to keep it still and look over the hyperactive corpse. The usual assortment of trashy other dim tattoos are there, but one kind of stands out. I tilt my head and look closer. It's a trio of circles with an infinity symbol in the middle. I touch the tat with my knife and it glows flame bright for a second. I sigh and put my fingers up to massage the bridge of my nose, but the oily stink of the naga hits me and I put them down again. Oh well, this looks like it's going to get complicated after all, but we'll get there when we get there. The tattoo means something bigger is behind all this, and that's never good. But it also means these guys are at least somewhat professional. Right now, I'm reasonably sure my young lady is still alive, but you never know with these monster types. They can be kind of undisciplined and might decide ripping a young girl's throat out is worth the trouble they could get into. Or it might just decide to eat an arm or a leg or a breast. A human being is a veritable KFC family meal to these guys, and I'm pretty sure everyone out there would prefer she emerged from this shit mess intact, at least physically. So it's time to get a move on. Dealing with stupid took a little longer than it should have. With all these pictures running through my head, I realize I've got a hard-on. I laugh and sort of tuck it down as I try to figure out the best way to get to the 5th floor. Subchapter 6. Anyway, I found the right door and shut myself into the stairwell. It's dark in here and dust hangs in the air like it's not been used in a while. I mutter a nifty little enhanced sight spell under my breath, learned it from a shaman in Boise, Idaho, of all places. The edges of things take on a very slight blue glow, so I feel like I'm walking around underwater. From somewhere above me there's the sound of a scuffle, then of running feet, and then something I can't make out. Maybe a body falling, maybe something else. Whatever it is, it's making me nervous. Time to pick up the pace. I start up the stairs, trading my knife for the 1.5-pound hatchet that's good for tight work. The noises above get louder, and now it's got me more than a little concerned. I'm at the 3rd floor now, and I realize that I've just been stepping over and around these bodies since the turn of the 2nd floor. I didn't even really notice. If that doesn't say something about a person right there, I don't know what does. Then all of a sudden, something new and worse. Silence. I pause, listening, but there's nothing. I guess maybe this isn't going to be as messy as I thought. Light spills from above me, pukey, yellowish-green light, and a voice echoes down through the stairwell.
We know you're there, Hunter.
Yeah, so? I shout back. The speaker seems to consider this. A head leans out over the banister. It's not as ugly as the Snake Man's, but close. Tattoos cover a shaven skull, and it's got that weird surprised look on its face that means its lips and eyelids have been removed. I see drool stretching downward through rotted teeth. However, for all the goofy cosmetics, I can also see the telltale sparks of magical energy in the outside corner of its eyes, so I know I'm dealing with one of the magi from the 5th sextet. Great. What's it gonna be, Magus? I say up to the face, seeing the lolling, maddened eyes. These guys are nuts. They've got too much power and they're almost never fun. Almost.
We will kill you, and then the girl if you continue.
Oh, okay, I say, putting up my hands. I'll stop right now on one condition.
And what is that?
The eyes look a little nervous now. Say, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Oh, that makes them mad. See, it's the lips thing, the lips. The lips they removed in the ecstasy of ultimate submission to their goddess. I forget her name, but she's one of those less cuddly types, and she's really into labias of all kinds for some reason. Anyway, the act of sacrifice gives them a shitload of magical focus, but it makes it really hard to say P and F words. They hate it when you fuck with them about it, and from what looks like a sincere attempt at a furious expression, this guy's no different. Come on, I yell, as the head ducks back behind the banister. It's easy. I pull the lips back from my, none too healthy teeth. Meth, man, it's no joke, I'm telling you. Hitter, hiker, heck, come on, you know it. There is a howl of rage, the wet sound of a slap against flesh, and all of a sudden a corpse, glowing green and bulging with pulsing magic, is tumbling towards me. A flesh bomb. Oh, shit. Not good. I look around frantically, grab the body of some overweight guy in his pajamas, pull myself behind and underneath it and against the wall. The weird smell of the guy's sweat mixed with the peculiar sweet odor of death is in my nose as I try and tuck myself as tightly as I... The human body, despite what movies want you to believe with that human shield shit, is really terrible against bullets of just about any caliber. They'll rip through the flesh in front and right into yours no problem. That's what the bullets are made to do, after all. However, with your average arcane flesh bomb explosion from a corpse which contains about 3 cubic centimeters of anti-life matter in the midair approximately 8 feet away from you, a human shield would do an adequate job of softening the shockwave enough to keep whoever is behind it more or less intact. And since that person happens to be me, I'm really glad I've got Mr. PJ's between me and it. Still, though, the impact slams me into the wall, and the blue heat of the flames comes uncomfortably close to sizzling some of the parts that weren't quite covered up by my under armor. My brain feels a little knocked around in my skull. I might have broken a rib hitting the wall, and I've got red welts up my left forearm, but I'm okay. I shove the smoldering dead guy off me and stand up, looking around. No real harm done to the building or me, just some melted rubber on the stairs that smells like shit. I hear cackling upstairs and heft the hatchet in my hand. Hey! I say loudly, throwing the hatchet straight up. The laughing stops and the head pops over the banister again. I didn't judge it perfectly, but pretty damn close, and the hatchet blade thunks into one of the lidless eyes, deep enough that I can hear the cracking of skull bone from where I'm standing.
Oh,
The magus screams,
you bastard! You fucking bastard!
I can't see him anymore, but that's okay because I suspect he's a bit busy at the moment. I kneel down, turn Mr. PJ's onto his back. He feels slightly slushy, like his insides might have been liquefied, which makes sense, I guess. I look at his homely, burned and battered face for a moment before finding $2 silver in one of my pants pockets. I place them over what's left of his eyes, put a hand on his forehead. Thanks for the assist, pal, I say. What? Fuck off. I'm a monster, but I'm not an asshole. Guy did me a solid. Anyway, back to work. By the time I get up to the 4th floor, the magus has given up trying to yank the hatchet out of his face. He's sitting in a widening pool of his own blood, sobbing quietly. When I get to the top of the stairs, he looks up at me with his one good eye and says, in a voice clogged with phlegm and emotion,
Go away, Lee. Go away. Go away. It hurts.
I stand in front of him. He's a pretty fucking sorry sight. Look, pal, I say, hunkering down and tilting my head a little to look him in the eye. It's nothing personal. Just like you trying to fucking blow me up wasn't personal. It's just the nature of the universe. He just looks at me, hatred seething in his one good eye.
Fuck you.
He gurgles. Yeah, up me sideways. I gently poke the hatchet handle and the magus groans, but it seems like he's getting too weak to do much about it. Up me royally. I just need to know something. I wiggle the handle. He makes a high-pitched yip. That cannot feel good. How many of you guys are there? You and Snaky and who else? Give me a number. Wet, sloppy sobs, and then...
Fuck you.
No, I say, and slam my palm into the back of the hatchet blade. This time it's not a groan, but a shriek. His good eye is rolling crazily in his head now.
5 of us.
5. He twitches.
6.
Which is it? I'm getting annoyed now. And I've just noticed something peeking out from this guy's chest, under his tunic or whatever. I yank it down. Yep, sure enough, it's that same tattoo as the Nagas. Curiouser and curiouser. The Snake Man was at least revered. This guy's a nobody, a second-rater by any estimation. What's he doing running with these guys? I think about asking, but I suspect, judging by the glazed-over look in his eyes, that I'm not getting any more answers. So, 5, or maybe 6. That means beyond this door are either 3 or 4, or 7 or 8. Well, who knows? And if it's the tattoos and not the usual tribal bullshit bringing these assholes together, then there's no telling what the next thing is going to be. And what the hell is this game about, anyway? Why did they kidnap a senator's daughter? What do they hold up here in this shitbox apartment building instead of snapping her through a transdim portal to somewhere on their own turf? What's the real endgame? Well, it's not for me to worry about, I guess. Mine is not to reason why, mine is just to make them die. I get the girl, or what's left of her, and hopefully my part with this will be done. Then I can go back to my room and my stash and my torture buddy and wait for the next thing to come up. I put a boot on his chest and yank hard on the hatchet. It doesn't give. The Magus doesn't respond. His body just twitches a bit. That fucking tattoo's staring at me, disquieting. I hear something beyond the door that makes me decide to leave the hatchet for now. I can always come back and get it later. There's a door that leads to the main hallway, and I pull it open. A thin, almost whisper comes from behind me.
Others. Stronger than me.
I look over and see the Magus, his head raised slightly, that gurgling sound as he sucks spit in and out through his teeth.
You are going to die, Hunter.
Yeah, probably someday, I say, and I go through the door. And now, I am a member of the bar in Texas, into the surprising cool of the desert Texas night, feeling somehow like I've been reborn, bathed, my sins washed away, baptized in blood. My hands are a black-red mess, shining in the moonlight, and I can feel the thick fluid moving across them and the drying blood wrinkling across my flexing skin like perfectly fitted gloves. I look up at the waning moon. Or is it waxing? It doesn't matter. And see the devil in those mountains and craters grinning down at me like an approving uncle. I know this world is shit, and it's more so every day. Getting to be that a regular human doesn't have a chance. You read about it all the time. They're out there, the monsters. So I've got to be something other than a regular human, I figure. I've got to be an even bigger monster. On that cold, black Texas night, I become who I already was. I am... Subchapter 7.
Death!
The angry roar is probably the only thing that saves me when I come through the door to the 4th floor hallway. Instinctively, I drop to my knees and roll, and it looks like a vending machine, just misses me by inches. It smashes into the wall, and would have had me in between it if not for the idiot's noise.
Death for you!
I look up from my crouch. Oh, okay, well that's not so bad. Just a golem. A big one, stitched together from what looks like an entire graveyard full of weightlifters, but nonetheless just an ugly, stupid thing, which for some reason has an enormous circumcised penis still attached to it. Usually they don't bother with that. Maybe whatever rabbi woke the thing up was feeling reckless and horny or something. I try not to think about it.
Death!
It repeats inanely and points at me with a huge stubby finger. It's grimacing with its pock-marked, disfigured face, and it is not pleasant to look at, let me tell you. I mean, whoever this was no prize when he was alive, and the years since, let us say, have not been kind. I stand up, square off against the huge, naked man thing. It's got to be at least 8 feet tall. I swear they cheat with some of that stuff. There aren't that many fresh, dead 8-footers in a given area. Magic, I ask you. And every inch of it seems to be busting out at the seams. Literally, in this case. I see some stitching that might be loose and think maybe that's how I'm going to take this guy down. See, the thing with golems is that they're not really alive in any real sense. There's no life. Think of it like magical puppetry. You can kind of set the will of the puppet to control itself. Don't ask me how it works, but I think it's mostly just a matter of the force of will of whoever set the thing in motion. Usually it's a rabbi, although not generally one of your normal run-of-the-mills, "Hi, Rabbi Shulman, pass the brisket" kind of rabbi. The other kind. The kind that makes huge, super-schlonged, undead automaton. But anyway, it's not so much a matter of killing them as it is of cutting the strings, or at least making the strings no longer viable. So if I can pull enough chunks off them to leave everything hanging separately, I won't have to worry about it.
Death for you!
It roars again. It was obviously meant to be intimidating, but frankly, I find the lack of imagination kind of sad, really. Just once I'd like to meet a gigantic ass-kicker who quotes Shakespeare. "Thou slave, thou wretch, thou coward, fight!" at me, or says, "Nothing personal, old chap," or something like a James Bond villain while they're trying to kick my brains out. But no, all I get is, "Death!" Alright, that's it. I've officially had enough. It's time for the main event. With a satisfying slick, I pull it out of the scabbard across my shoulders and square off against Big Ugly. The thing's enormous wang swings back and forth obscenely. I'm not a prude by any means, but this is just ridiculous. I duck under a swing. Jesus, that fist is huge. There's definitely something going down with this monster, and I don't like it. Your run-of-the-mill golem is usually just about as big and strong as a normal person with no pain reflexes, but this guy's fast, and he seems to have it in for me pretty good. He goes to grab my face off, but I counter with my knife hand. I get a decent tag in, not enough to sever it at the wrist, but it makes a pretty big gash and the hand goes limp. Must have severed a tendon. It won't be playing piano anytime soon. Not that this guy seems like the Moonlight Sonata in D minor type. Okay, it's time to go for the stitches. I duck under another swipe and leap at the guy, wrapping my legs around his waist for leverage, highly aware of the thing flopping around under my butt. Look, I'm as open-minded as the next guy, but I have no intention of getting raped to death by this thing. I look into those dead eyes rolled up to the whites, and I know that it wouldn't matter if I gouged them both out with my thumbs. This thing isn't seeing anything anyway. Not in the photons passing through the vitreous humor and striking the light-sensitive cells of the retina sense. "Death for you!" I get a blast of that cold as the grave breath and nearly pass out from the stink. I put an elbow under the thing's eye with my left arm and chop as hard as I can at the black, uneven stitches holding the arm to the torso at the shoulder. The instant it connects, I know that I'm in bigger trouble than I thought. Somebody's beaten me to the punch. There's a purple flash of light that emanates from the point of impact, and then a concussive wave that loosens my teeth and sends me flying back and up and across the room. The flying isn't the bad part, of course. The bad part comes when you stop flying, or, more to the point, when something makes you stop flying. This time it's the crack crunch of the ceiling, which fortunately is some kind of plaster drop thing and not, say, cement. Do they make cement ceilings? Everything goes black. Subchapter 8. I'm sprawled on the ground, ears ringing, everything going in and out, double vision, blurry, the works. I'm trying to figure out what's going on, but all I can see are two huge veiny cocks, slowly waving back and forth in front of my face. Something in the back of my mind is telling me that this isn't right, that there is something terribly wrong about this situation. And the front of my mind is thinking, no shit, there's something wrong! But then as things come into focus, the back of my mind clarifies what exactly it's alluding to, and I remember, the golem. I'm in a very bad position here. I can see the outline of the thing over me, but it's kind of just standing there, wavering back and forth, an odd dim look on its face. I wonder for a moment why it's not pulping me into the floor tile, but then I realize that whoever put the whammy on those stitches didn't think it all the way through, neglected a pretty big design flaw. That blast of purple whatever the fuck it was didn't just go off in my face, it went off in the thing's face too. Small fucking favors. It says in a low voice. I pull myself to my feet, every cell of my body screaming at me to stay down. My vision swims and I feel like I would probably puke if I'd eaten any time in the last couple of days. That fucking ringing in my ears. The thing says, a little louder this time. Yeah, I hear you, I say. You know, I'm already starting to miss our old conversations, pal. How the fuck am I supposed to kill this thing? Or whatever, incapacitate it. I can't bleed it out. I can't break its bones. They're magically hardened. Everybody knows that. It's like day one of golem making class. Hell, even if I took its head off somehow, it wouldn't matter to this thing. Maybe I could chop its pecker off and unbalance it. Abruptly, my head clears up. It happens that way sometimes. Takes a few minutes for the glamours I've got set up in my systems to kick in. But when they do, it's better than a handful of ibuprofen and a big cup of black coffee. I stand up, the main event back in my hand. It always ends up there somehow. Death! Just in time to duck right the fuck down again under that massive paw. As I do so, I notice how limp the hand is, and it all comes to me in a flash. Cut the strings! Well, there's more than one kind of string, isn't there? I mean, this thing's cobbled together, but it still has working muscles under there so it can move, muscles connected to bones by tendons, and that's all tendons are, after all, just strings to move the puppet. Yeah! I yell, and am immediately on the offensive, dodging and weaving in and out of this thing's grasp. I know that any slight miscalculation will probably mean the end of everything, But I'm in the zone now, and it feels like it's all going in slow motion. Mr. Death for You seems taken aback by the whole thing, his slack jaw seeming even more slack somehow, but he keeps at it gamely enough, trying to get me with those big clumsy meat hooks. But every time I get in close enough, I tag him. At first, there's no noticeable difference, but eventually I get through the crunchy candy coating and into the delicious creamy center. My mind goes back to every book on anatomy I've read, every corpse I've seen, how the muscles connect to the bone and where the weakest point is, and I just keep hammering away with the main event, and the thing just keeps trying to take my head off, and its dick just keeps flopping around ludicrously. Then there's a jerk and an audible pop, and the thing's right arm drops to its side as the tendon window shades off the bone. It keeps flinging its shoulder around, but the arm isn't connected to anything and just kind of sways back and forth. The golem seems too intent on clocking me to notice that half of its attack capabilities are done with, which is cool. After that, it's just a matter of time. It's not long before I take the other arm at the shoulder, and it's nothing but an aggressive but ineffectual torso. Then I slice a hamstring and it goes down. Still, though, one leg keeps pumping towards me, and that goddamn penis just drags across the floor with it. It's that sight that makes me take the final, if a tad unnecessary, step of stopping all its limbs for good. I picture its muscles under the skin, bunched up and flexing angrily with nothing to hold on to. Then it's just face down on the ground, its back and buttock muscles twitching impressively. Somehow it seems to know its beat, though.
Death,
It says quietly, almost sadly.
death for you.
Then it gives up. Yeah, I say, and I notice now that it's all over that the same fucking tattoo is on the back of the thing's neck. I'm not really surprised at this point, I guess. Clap, clap, clap. Over my shoulder, I look and see myself walking toward me. Subchapter 9. Well done, I say. I mean, the me that isn't me, but the one walking toward me. I thought the golem would be the end of you, but it seems you managed to defeat it through sheer stubbornness. What are you supposed to be? I ask. I wipe some slime off the main event and let it hang down by my side. What do you think? I'm you. I'm the one thing you can't defeat, no matter how stupid and stubborn you are. The thing that is and isn't me steps sideways and I mirror the movement as we case each other. Or as I case him. I don't know what the fuck his game is. I'm your first furtive masturbation over that dog skeleton you found in the woods behind your house. Your father's shame when you turned out to be neither smart nor athletic, nor even once had a girlfriend. The time you pinched your mother's arm so hard she bled. What do you think? She cried so hard and asked you why you would do such a thing. Such a mean thing. It transforms into a beautiful vision of a loving mother, crying and smiling with devotion. Now, I know that my mother was a Polish prostitute working at a Danzig. I don't remember her at all, but this thing is trying to make me believe that my mother was some sort of saint and I was a bad son and the guilt is going to cripple me, putting memories into my head. It's an old trick and not even an interesting one. So anyway, yeah, a shapeshifter, psionic specialist, probably a djinn or one of those other desert spirits. They like to fuck with your head before they kill you. You have to know that you're not going to get anywhere with this guilt thing, right? I say. I mean, you can put whatever thoughts you want into my head and it's not going to make any difference. And your sister? Your little sister? And there she is. The thing melts like a blob of wax and reforms as the adorable and innocent sister it's psychically created in my head. I don't have any siblings as far as I know. When she wept at your feet, and you said it was a secret as you fastened your belt, and when it threatened to not be a secret any longer, you murdered that old man in the alleyway who killed the thing inside her. Do you remember? Yeah, I remember, I say. You're putting all these thoughts in my head, making me feel all of this. So what? And I killed myself, the thing says in my non-existent sister's voice. All because of you. Sure you did, I say, the memories forming in front of me like stepping stones. I found your little body, all cold. It looked like you were sleeping except for the red tears on your cheeks. You'd rubbed your bleeding wrists on your face to remind me how disappointed you were, how I'd let you down. And now, it says, turning into something I don't know or I don't know yet, the girl Diana Patel, I'm assuming, not so young as my sister, but still looking innocent in her modest skirt and blouse. Now you're going to let me down. I'm begging for you to rescue me from rape and murder and worse, and you'll fail me, and... Okay, now I have had about enough of this shit. I step forward and take the thing's head off with the main event, One good swipe and it just pops off and onto the floor. I don't know if that kills it, but it shuts it up in a moment. That's all I care about. It folds backwards at the knees and to the ground. I remember all of it, and you know what? I kick the head down the hallway. I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter, any of it. So just shut the fuck up. I can't tell what I'm feeling. I've always had trouble with that, but right now I can't tell if I'm angry or just annoyed. At any rate, I really don't have time for this. My head's hurting for some reason. I can't tell what I want to do except I have to find where they're keeping that girl. I shake my head, smack myself across the face. Fuck this noise. Suddenly I hear what sounds like a human scream from one of the doorways down the hall. The pain in my head goes away and I'm back on track. It must be happening down here. I start kicking open doors. 1, nothing, empty but for a dirty mattress on the floor. 2, also empty, another soiled mattress. Boy, these really are some shitty apartments. 3, sitting upright against the wall, eyes open and staring, is Tommy Schreffler, the erstwhile dealer and informant. His last moment of ecstasy painted on his face in red lines, one hand closed on his lap, the other open and spilling ether caps onto the floor. So much for the inside guy. 4, nothing. 5, and here we are. Subchapter 10. It's a fucking sight for sure. The first thing I see is the projector screen they've set up, showing a man with open and 2 alive eyes spitted over a large fire. They do this sometimes when they have a human captive. They seem to think it's funny or something. To be honest, I can kind of see their point. The images portray in graphic detail some of the less brutal rooms of hell. Stabbings, beheadings, guttings, vivisection. Shit that would make Dante toss his carbonara. Acts of sexual depravity so low and alien that even I'm no more than passingly interested. Slicing off breasts and testicles, demons with acid semen, exploding dildos so the victim is left looking down at the ruins of their lower extremities. But then I take in the rest of the room and I see immediately how it's going to go down. There's the hunchbacked imp, grinning and drooling stupidly at me, a glittering silvery knife in his hand. He's poking it savagely into the side of the thing I've come all this way to find. There she is, sweet and mocha latte skin, and scared as can be. She's just the perfect picture of terror. Wide-eyed, mascara streaming down her cheeks like raven's wings, bound and gagged. I can hear her wet sobbing through the cloth between her jaws. "Aw, honey, I just want to pick you up and carry you home and eat you up." I literally want to do that. Warm spit gushes along my tongue, and I can see every inch of this tidbit's skeleton shivering and cracking inside her. Oh, the things I would do to you. But not tonight. Tonight it's the job. Maybe I'll look her up after things settle down a bit. "You know," I say to the imp, who continues to grin and stare at me with round, empty eyes, "this is only gonna go down one way. You know that, right?" It slurs and giggles. It jabs a knife into the girl's side and she lets out a delicious little eep through the gag. I try not to let this distract me. I need the girl, intact, unmarked, and I need her now. The room is starting to smell like something familiar, an acrid, sulphurous odor that does not bode good things. It suddenly dawns on me to wonder, after the snake god and the blood magician and the Charles Atlas Wundergolem and the rest, why would this deformed idiot be the last line of defense against me? I look him in the eyes and he tries to make a face like he knows what the fuck he's doing. Give me a break! I suddenly think of prom night for some reason. The captain of the football team letting the special needs kid take his cheerleader girlfriend to the prom. And as I suck in a breath, annoyed at my own fucking dim-wittery, I realized that the maggots had said 5 but amended it to 6, and that maybe I was about to lose at this very, always delicately balanced game I've played of keeping the advantage. It's one thing to get swatted by a low-level flunky, another to leave your back open to an obvious ploy from a big fucking player. And then there it is, the hand, chill and smooth as a dead man's eye teeth. It clamps down on my shoulder. From somewhere in the shadows behind me, in the murk of this shitty apartment, something has emerged, and it is bad. One of those things whose names has been cast out from the book of creation and somehow still stands outside it. "Hey there," it says in a disquietingly normal voice, like being greeted by a bank teller, a light European accent that I can't place. Cold claws press into my shoulder, and acid breath stings my neck. "So you know, this isn't personal." "It never is it?" I say. I can hear quaver in my voice and my muscles have gone slack. Something in this thing's aura has my blood running cold and my balls shriveling like raisins. The imp stares with wide eyes. I can see it's pretty fucking scared of this new guy too. A rusty chuckle. No, I suppose not. The hand crawls across the front of my neck like a skeletal spider. A nail flicks across my Adam's apple and I choke involuntarily. Jesus, this guy must be one of the big ones. It's not personal, but it is a pleasure, I have to admit. It goes on in that smooth professional voice. I've followed your career. You've been quite the flying in the ointment. It ends now. Hey, look, I rasp. Keep the girl all right. It's just a job. Oh, we will. We have plans for her. My vision is starting to fade. Behind me I can feel a sucking wind and a creeping heat. I see the imp lower the knife, and then something amazing happens. The girl suddenly juts her arms out and catches her bound hands over the imp's head, pulling up against its throat and squeezing its neck into her body. It writhes and chokes, and after a moment with an audible snap, goes limp. I look the girl in the eye and suddenly see something very different from the terrified child I saw when I entered the room. The tears are still drying on her cheeks and her face is blank, but she is moving on instinct now, an instinct I recognize. Meanwhile, the thing behind me is tensed up, momentarily shocked into inaction by the turn of events. In the few seconds I have before it gets its bearings, I push out with everything I've got left and manage to unclamp myself. Having no fucking clue what I'll do once I'm free, I stand there stupidly for a second, then turn to see nothing. I almost see something, but I'm immediately knocked sideways by something that smells of a familiar, heady mixture of sweaty fear and girlish perfume. It's moving past and probably weighing in at just under 120 pounds. I feel the whistle of superheated air above my head as whatever it is just misses me with a killing swipe. What the fuck? I'm in uncharted territory. I'm not used to getting my ass rescued, especially not by little girls just out of their teens. She shoulders me, leading me as I slowly regain my orientation. Moof, 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 which I'm taking to mean, just go with it, asshole. And so I do. I stumble forward past the shadowy whatever it is toward a brightly glowing hole in reality that has ripped itself open sometime in the confusion. I don't know if it's a good idea to be heading toward it or not, but I can see what it is, a trans-dim portal. But to where? To where these things came from? To somewhere Mr. Bad was going to send me to? If the latter, it's probably going to be pretty bad, and they must know that I have some pretty heavy-duty resurrection glams on me in case my heart stops beating. They're pretty useful usually, but if they toss me into a dimension of molten phosphorus, it's going to be a long eternity being burned to death over and over again. Oh well, our momentum has us on a pretty much irrevocable path right into it. I just have to cross my fingers and hope it leads somewhere livable. I feel small hands wrap around me as we tumble into the void. So this thing's been a long time coming, and I just want to say a big thank you to everybody who's helped me along the way. I want to give a big thank you to my friend Robert White, who gave me the idea and said, hey, why don't you make this a podcast? And I was like, oh yeah, why don't I do that? Because it's originally a book that I wrote, and hopefully everybody who, if you like the podcast, you can read the book. And it's just exactly the same as a podcast, except you have to do the effort of actually reading it. So, and there are no sound effects in the book, but still. And, you know, this has been a lot of work, but it's something that I really believe in, and hopefully you've enjoyed this first one, and look forward to the next one, and the one after that, and the one after that. There's going to be 10 in total, 10 chapters each per book. And then we'll see how far the books go and how far the podcasts go, and then we'll just see what goes next. So I'm just having a good time doing this, and I really love the character, and I really love voicing him, and I think it's like what Stephen King said when he did originally he did his Gunslinger books, the Dark Tower books. The first 3 he read himself, and I always thought they were the best. When Frank Muller was an amazing voice actor, but to me, it's like when the author reads it himself, you get a real sense of like where. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it. I'm gonna keep doing it. It's a lot of work, but hopefully at some point I'll get some more people involved with this, and if people like it, maybe it'll get a little bit slicker, and then we can go back and re-record with some other actors and stuff, and doing some of the other parts, because I basically have one voice, which is his voice, and everybody else kind of just sounds like him too, and it doesn't really work. So, but I just want to thank my mom, and I want to thank. She's always been a real big supporter of me through all of this, and she's amazing. And there's people I thank in the book. Just so go buy the book on Amazon. And if you want to get in touch with me, my email is kevin.c.norris@gmail.com, and we'll just write me, and I'll talk to you about whatever. You want to talk about the book, you want to talk about anything, I'll talk to you about it. I'm very new to where I'm living right now, and I'm kind of lonely. so maybe we'll just I'll make some new friends from this. But okay, that's pretty much all I got to say about this. Thanks you for listening, and look out for the next one. It's going to be chapter 2 is going to come out probably. Well, it's done now, so it'll be out in a week. I wanted to make sure I had 2 at least done before I put the first one out. So I'm going to probably put it out in a week, and that's good. And then keep going from there. So thank you everyone for listening, and of course I want to also thank Aaron for never reading the book ever. And I'll see you in the